Hello, welcome to this Cycling Live Leadership Bytes. I am Bernard Moerman, and as always, I'm interviewing guys that were in cycling and that are using stuff they learned in cycling in their today's life. Today, I'm talking with Gregg Germer that I know about 20 years. He's from Texas, America. It's always kind of iffy if you tell it that way. But anyways, I will let Gregg introduce himself. Gregg, welcome and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Gregg Germer. I'm originally from Houston, Texas, but I would say officially for the last 13 years, I've been living here in Belgium. Unofficially, I guess you could call it almost 18 years because I was spending more time here in Belgium. I'm former professional cyclist. I spent 3 years as a professional here in Belgium, and for the last 10, 11 years now, I'm running a guest house in Oudenaarde, kind of here in the heart of the Flemish cycling. So,
Okay, you have a family here, huh? You're married and you have kids, huh?
yes, my wife, her family's from Belgium. She's originally from Canada, actually, but her parents immigrated to Canada, and now she's re-immigrated back to Belgium.
Okay,
And I have one daughter, Evelyn, who's 7 now.
okay, wonderful. We met, when was that? Was that 2001 or 2002?
2002. It's post 9/11. That's how I always remember
Oh yeah,
when I came.
yeah,
It's really easy to remember when I came.
yeah,
I just remember that.
yeah,
So it was 2002 was the first time that we met.
yeah. The very first thing and stuff that I will always remember about you is you were in my program for just a short time and you were already selected for the US national team, U23, and doing Tour of Flanders, and you ended up breaking your collarbone. So then I had to pick you up in Roodse in the hospital. But the
That was,
determination you had was remarkable. Can you say some
thank
more
you.
about that?
Yeah, that was a little bit of a trouble. It was good to be very young and very motivated at that time. I don't think older me could have had that kind of motivation. But I'd been training it. I'd planned out my entire year. I had 5 months. I went to South Africa. I got really super fit. I came to Belgium like late February. It was super dark. It was windy. And then 3 weeks later, for I think it was actually Dwarsdorp-Vlaanderen.
Okay.
But it was like a World Cup for under 23s then, and I was racing with the national team, and I guess it's good kind of going in blind because I really had no idea what I was in for with all the cobbled climbs. And I just remember we got through like the third hard cobbled climb in 10K, and then I was just cross-eyed in the caravan, and then one of them slammed on the brakes, and I just didn't have the consistency or the forethought to brake hard enough for that. So then I ended up crashing and breaking my collarbone pretty hard.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, I was in the hospital. So,
Yeah, exactly. Okay, great.
yeah, 3 weeks into coming to Belgium.
Yes,
So,
yeah, I remember. And to me, it showed the tremendous toughness you had at that time because, yeah, I mean, in the weeks before, I kind of remember the only thing you talked about was about that race. And I had to tell Noel Bianchi, you got to take this kid because, this guy will not survive it if he cannot do that race. But yeah, it was.
I did not lack for ambition.
No, not at all. Not at all. Great. Gregg, I will ask you some questions that are intriguing me. What habits of your cycling time is still most helpful in your today's life?
Well, I guess if you look back, the thing that the number one cycling habit that helps me now through everything is being consistent. I don't work, I work for myself. I'm self-employed. I run my own business. And being a cyclist in a lot of ways is almost exactly the same. Like there's no boss to sit there and I guess you can have a coach, which is kind of like a boss, but I always worked more with like mentor type coaches than like day-to-day nitpicky coaches. And so I learned a lot of consistency and how to be able to find a nice rhythm and be able to do all the building blocks that make, your career successful, or gain that fitness. It's just like you got your pyramidization of your base in the winter and then peaking and all that. It's just about consistently doing things. I guess one of the for the kids that come to the house when we have development camps here, I always tell them, it's like, you may not think it's a big deal to be sick. I was like, if you get sick 2-3 times in a year because you don't wash your hands and you're not doing these things, it's like, well, that's 3-4 days that you're off the bike. Well, you do that 3 times in a year, it's 9 to 12 days. Well, that's almost 2 weeks each year. Well, then you times that by 5 years of your career trying to become a professional, and then you're losing 10 weeks, 2.5 months of training to being sick every year. And that's just from, simply not washing your hands or trying to be consistent in what you do. And so these little things that it's like, oh, I just got sick, it's 3 days, it's no big deal, but it interrupts your schedule and all that stuff. And that's where I always found like developing a system and being consistent really helped me in both cycling and my career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, later on we will talk about what you're doing today. So Gregg is running a place where cyclists from all over the world can come. Kind of refers to what I did earlier on. But so that's what Gregg is doing, but he will talk more about that later. Another question is like, what was the drive to become a pro cyclist? And is that drive recognizable still in what you're doing today?
For me, becoming a pro cyclist was like it was a goal. I just remember watching it's not like today where you can just, go to like Flow Cycling and just stream every race and you can just consume it. I started cycling in 95. And so back then, all you had were really bad. Somebody had to get a tape. It had to be converted from PAL to NTCS. And then you had to like find some dude. And then that one copy got copied 100 times. Or you had the Tour de France from ABC on television. And so I remember watching like Paris-Roubaix and Tour of Flanders and just like, I was like, I want to do that. And so from a very young age, I realized that's what I wanted to do. And then so for me, becoming a professional cyclist was like trying to find that limit, how far can I go? And then you get to that point, you think, oh, this is, the hardest I'll ever go. And then you go, wait, no, I can keep going. I remember the first time I did a 10-day stage race, and I came from a track cycling background. So like endurance was not my thing. But then after I did that 10-day stage race, I was wrecked. But then after that, races actually, I was like, or even like, I remember a 200-kilometer race became normal. And if you told me like 3-4 years before that, I would be like, a 200-kilometer race, I would be really worried. But then, 2 years into being a pro, 200K was just like, oh yeah, we're good. Okay, we'll do that. So.
Is that shift mode, is that helping you today?
It does. It's I'm always trying to do a little bit more. Every year in your business, you just say, okay, last year we were doing this. Okay, this year we want to do a little bit more, and we want to do a little bit more. And you're always trying to find, a little bit of improvement. And so, and the good part is there's kind of a limit to cycling, like how far you can get as from a physical standpoint, but like, at least in business, there's kind of not really, I guess there's a market limit to like what your potential is within a certain space. And if you know that, that's fine. But like, you can keep going, it's like, okay, I've reached the limit in this, and then you can keep going. It's a lot easier than like, I got everything done in road cycling, I'm going to be a cyclocross cyclist now. It's just not the same. So.
Okay. So what is for you the biggest advantage of having done that competition as a youth? Like, if you need to say, this is helping me today, what would that be?
kind of builds on the consistency part, and it's just building, for me, building discipline into my schedule in my life. And it's just, it's hard to learn that in school because it's all regimented. It's done for you.
Yeah.
And so it's like somebody else telling you, okay, do this, do this, do this. But then finding that self-motivation and discipline to, wake up, and it's you that needs to do it. And if you don't have that, it's going to be really hard to run a business yourself unless, you have that person above you. But if you want to run the business, it kind of needs to come from, you have to find that within you to have that discipline to just consistently do. And some days, the work is really fun and fulfilling, but there's some days, you gotta do grunt work. It just has to get done. There's no one else to do it, so you do it. So, and it helps get you through those days.
You got to be great in the bad days, huh?
Like, oh yeah, it's like, oh yeah, the washing machine's broken, so it's like, okay, time to pull down the washing machine and figure out what's wrong. Oh, look, this fuse is blown. Okay, go online, find it, order it, because it's a lot faster than actually calling somebody to do it. And it saves me a lot more money too.
Yeah, I for sure would vote for that second thing. Can you give me some things you learned from your competitive cycling career that makes a difference today? Like, can you say like, okay, if I would not have gotten those experiences, this or that would have never been okay?
Yeah. I'll say, I'm trying to remember okay, I remember who it was now. I was at a junior development camp from USA Cycling way back in the day, and I was trying to, it's been so long ago, I'm trying to remember the coach. It was DMO, David Meyer Oaks, and he was telling me, he's like, Germer, there's one thing, he goes, you've got ambition and everything, but he goes, I'll tell you one thing I like, it's like you're always on time. And being on time, and then what I learned was, he was like, I like that, because he goes, you're always the one guy I can rely on not to have to deal with, because for him as the manager and the coach and everything, the more time, if he has somebody that he has to deal with and they're consistently late, it takes his time and energy away, then it gives me an advantage over that person. Even if the person's maybe a little bit better, they're a coach or business partner or somebody, or even people that you work with, if you're on time, it's just a sign of respect. And that's what I've learned over the years. And that was something that I got taught a long time ago that I really was able to take with me for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so it's just being on time. It's not and it costs you nothing. That's the great thing.
No, but it brings a lot, huh? Because now you are organizing your own team, and I think if you don't have the guys with you, it pisses you off.
I understand where he's coming from now. I've got well, I have a thing. It actually came from what show is that? Everybody Loves Raymond. One of the skits that he did, and it's called AIS, and it's butt in seat.
Yeah.
And so every time the first race, all right up there, everybody in the van, AIS, and everybody's like, what's AIS mean? I said, that's the time the bus leaves. If you're not in it, you better be dying.
Yeah.
And we have yet to not bring somebody after I'm that clear about it. I think once we left the guy behind when we did a bike shop run. He was running down the street, flip-flops flying in the wind. So, but we're like, you did, this is consequences. We had a schedule.
Yeah.
So
I remember one time leaving the cycling center with one man short, and it was just, he's on the toilet. Maybe you were there, I don't know. I said, well, we have 10 toilets in the entire place. We go. And he was not at the race. I mean, and for the rest of the season, I did not have that issue anymore. It was, everybody was complaining in the van, but I'm like, no. this is it. Everybody knew ahead of time. So, okay.
We had that at a stage race. You were at the stage race too, because you loaned our team a shifter. This is years later.
Oh yeah, and
then I had to drive the big box van. I was working with a local team here, and it's like it can only go 80K. We're in Liège area, so I go early. I set up my 7 seats for the 7 guys, and then all of a sudden everybody sits down. You know, an hour later, everybody shows up. 6 seats are filled, and I'm like, guys, where's Herert Jan? And they'd left them on the toilet.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, it's
that's why I understand call of nature and all that, but it's like you gotta plan out your time. Luckily for him, there was another team there that had brought him.
Yeah.
It was like
you're so right. I mean, talent, that's what you're born with, but there is so much stuff that can influence your day that is just very trainable. That's always what I try to install in all of you guys, where it's like, well, obviously when the talent levels are different, well, yeah, that's a point, but getting in time, knowing what you need to do, everybody can do that.
And you can change those habits very quickly, and the gains from them, they multiply, and it's just eking out efficiencies and everything. And that's what it's all about.
You're right. I have one more question that intrigues me. What is for you the single most important advice you can give to any active cyclist combining his hobby, cycling, with work and his family? Because I think in what you're doing today, you come across those type of people too, and most probably you give them that advice. What is the single most important advice you can give there?
Well, probably it's the one it's actually one I give from competitive cyclists all the way up to it kind of goes for everything. And that's just have fun. And it sounds very corny and very cliche, but really a lot of the things that you do in sport are really hard. And so if you have to do this over and over again and you're not having fun doing it, it's going to make it really a slog. And that's kind of along the lines of having discipline. I mean, nobody loves going out in 5 hours of cold, wet rain, but understanding where having that passion, and it's along the same lines as passion. But a lot of people take stuff. There's a fine line between taking things way too serious and just serious enough. And actually, it was probably it. And when I was at your time, that was what. Jeff wasn't the first person to kind of put this little seed in my head, but he was one of them. That is one of the ones I remember. It's Jeff Lauder, and we were out on a canal ride, and he was like, I think he was riding for Landau credit then, and he was like, You know what? He goes, I had a whole year where I drank no beer, not one, the entire season. He goes, and it made me miserable. He goes, the next year, he goes, I had a beer every once in a while, not to excess or anything, not like he's having a big night out. He goes, if I wanted a beer, I had a beer. And he's like, he goes, just the stress of not having to take it so serious, and there's certain parts of the year where you got to bring the weight down. You're serious, but not having it where you just can't have one beer, can't enjoy one evening out with friends. It's like, yes, you should be in bed at especially if you're a hobbyist, it's important to be, you like your sport. You want to get out there, you got to wake up at 6 a.m. for that Saturday morning ride and get out there. But really, at the end of the day, if you get invited to go out with friends and have a nice wine and drink and enjoy some chatting, that is also very important for you mentally, the mental side of yourself, the relationships, the joy of life.
Yeah.
And so it's learn to have some fun, take it serious, but have fun.
I can totally agree. I remember one time we were in a stage race, I think in France, and they had very good wine there. And so for the evening meals with the theme, we had wine on the table. And one of the young guys that was there for the first time, he came to me and he said well, at the cycling center, we're not allowed to have any alcohol, and here you bring the wine on the table. I said, well, you got to understand, when I need to manage 28 young guys at the cycling center, then there can't be any alcohol. But here, you have worked very hard today. So maybe just one glass of wine, I'm not talking about bottles of wine, but just one glass of wine might just mentally totally relax you, you know, as you say, so that you have fun. Because those guys, you know, after a few days, you feel like a beaten dog, you know, and we did not stay in very nice hotels with air conditioning and stuff like that. So in a way,
France in the summer.
Yeah, you know, in a way, when the stage race in France, the night is even worse than the day, isn't it? You know,
there's nothing more. Well, you need something to wash down overcooked rice and boiled chicken breast.
Yeah, that you eat for days.
Oh,
yeah.
It's like I remember, you know, you have these ideas when before you come to Europe, like, you know, France is wine and elegant food, and then you show up to a stage race and you're like served overcooked rice and boiled chicken breast, and you're like, I thought they made awesome food in France. And I was like, well, no, they make regular food like every other school cafeteria would.
And well, that's one thing. But the other thing is, what I thought is, when I was working with you guys, that was the let's say the youth and young professionals. But then I did some work for several teams in the Tour de France and the Giro, where you would think, like, when you go to a stage race with youth, you're just in the fourth choice hotel. But even with the big teams, you're in the same type of hotels, and it's not really the same type of food, but it's not that much better. I mean, there is no luxury. Let's put it that way. Huh? Is that your experience as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the only stage race I actually kind of half enjoyed the hotels was the 10-day one, the Olympia's Tour from way back in the day. And that was only because they had Van der Valk for one of the main sponsors. So we always stayed at a Van der Valk. And those are nice business hotels kind of places. Except for one day, we had a 256K stage.
Wow.
After we had a double day the day before. Yeah. I'll never forget it. We were all just like, that was the longest, stupidest day of mine. I mean, my SRM almost ran out of like memory and it had a 7-hour memory on it. So it took us almost 7 hours to do that stage. It wasn't super fast, but it was still fast. And then we're all like, yes, I can't wait to get to this amazing hotel, blah, blah, blah. And then it was the one day they didn't have a Van der Valk for us to stay in. And it was like the worst hostel I've ever stayed at. No air conditioning, like plastic covered mattress kind of thing. And it was just like, I was so looking forward to, like, you know, it's like, it wasn't so bad. And then you had that one day. I was just like,
Okay.
Yeah, most of the time.
Greg, we're almost running out of time here.
Okay,
so
perfect.
I gotta wrap up because I want you to say a few more things about what you're doing today. But can I wrap up with saying that the overall 3 points takeaways for our audience is that consistency, that's something you really take from cycling into your life today. Discipline, and having fun. Am I correct with when I say those are Gregg's takeaways from his cycling career into his business life today?
Yep, I 100% agree with those.
And today your business is kind of what I was doing, but just a little different. So you have the ChainStay. That's a place where people can come to race, and you have your own team. Can you just say something about that?
Yeah, I'm running a cycling guest house here in Oudenaarde now. We have 7 bedrooms and about capacity for up to 13 people. So it's not quite as big as what you were doing back in the day. And we run it a little bit different. We don't have we're not solely focused on U23 development age bracket. We kind of cater to like everything. And after 10 years, our kind of yearly schedule ends up being, we host cycling tours for the spring classics. when they happen.
Yeah.
Although I just saw the schedule now. We'll probably try redoing the hosting for the Spring Classics in October. And it'll be interesting because I looked at the schedule yesterday, and now that things kind of feel like they're on solid ground, and it was like, holy crap, there's so much race. Like, if somebody wants to come to Belgium in October, A, the weather can be amazing, but then B, there's going to be, it's just like race.
Yeah.
It's like, so we do the Spring Classics. We host normal tour cyclists that want to come over to Belgium. We take them to the races, and then we provide them a nice place to stay and breakfast. Then we'd run a 8-week camp for the U23 guys. Kind of found it takes a special type of person to last 6 months. Like, there are some people that can do 6 months, but the Belgian government's a little bit more strict than back in the day when I came to your place about 6 months.
Yeah.
And then also I found like 8 weeks, 10 weeks is kind of people get a lot of racing. You can teach them a lot, and then they can go home, have a break. And if they want to come back, some of the guys will come back in the fall. July, we do a junior development camp. And then August, September's just mostly guests that want to come and stay at the house. And then from kind of October, November onwards, we have a cross season. Kind of have a consistent group of cyclocrossers that want to come over. They need a base, a place to stay. We have a van for people to use to get to and from the races. So we have a lot of options.
Great. Greg, this was wonderful talking with you. I think, the audience will like that for sure. And so here I need to round up. Hey, people, thank you so much for watching this. I think Greg had some very interesting insights. If you like this, please give us a thumbs up. Keep following us. And I would say, see you next time. Greg, it was nice talking to you. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay. Bye.